right. And now I am excited, ecstatic, thrilled to kick off today's event, Filling Leadership Gaps for Women in Tech, Finding Your Fit and Growing Your Career, sponsored by Thomson Reuters. We're excited to be joined by two leaders at Thomson Reuters, Kriti and Yelena. So first and foremost, please introduce yourself, ladies. We'd love to hear about your backgrounds, both personal and professional. Kriti, I'd love it if you could kick us off.
Great. Hi, guys. I'm Kriti Sharma. I am tuning in from Switzerland, as is Yelena. I just recently moved from London to this little village in Switzerland called Zug. And when I first moved here, when I was moving here, I was told, "Oh, what were your plans for Zug?" And I said, "What's a Zug?" I just didn't know what that was a real place. So I seem to be one of those people who take on new adventures without knowing very much and love to explore. My background is I studied computer science. I got interested in robotics as a very young kid. My first robot I built was solved a very important problem for the world. It fed Snicker, the candy from the snack bar, at 3 p.m. every day. I then decided to do better things with my life and not just automate unhealthy snack fetching habits, for which my parents were very grateful. At Thomson Reuters now, I'm the Chief Product Officer for Legal Tech, which is our team that's on a mission to create software products that create more access to justice for communities around the world and drive more efficiency, productivity and disrupting the legal profession. And I'm really excited to tune in today and hang out and jam with my friend Yelena.
Amazing. It's made a robot that feeds Snickers at 3 p.m. That is amazing. Yelena, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Please introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
Hello. Hi, everybody. So I'm also just tuning in from Switzerland, but I've actually been here for more than 20 years. My career started in Switzerland 22 years ago, to be more precise. I didn't do any exciting things like Kriti. When I was a kid, I think most of the most exciting things I did is unassembled and assembled the telephone. And I mean the old ones, the ones with a kind of like not the digits, but the one before that. So I think that was actually the exciting thing I did. But I've been in technology for more than 20 years here in Switzerland, and I'm with Thomson Reuters only since March this year. I'm their first distinguished engineer. And usually people are asking, what is the distinguished engineer? It is an engineer that is distinguished. Well, joking aside, it's actually the program. I got a chance to build the role of the distinguished engineer. And with that, I also built the program for Thomson Reuters. And this is really the program that establishes the technical career path. And it really straightens the engineering culture that we have at Thomson Reuters. So it's something I'm very excited about. But before that, I did many different topics. With 20 plus years of experience in technology, you actually have many possibilities to do fun stuff and challenging stuff and so on. So I was usually involved in strategic topics, the topics where you had to start things from the scratch. So actually my role at Thomson Reuters is not a surprise to me. And, I like building things also that have not just value, but that are a little bit innovative, maybe quirky, maybe something that people don't always, that surprises people. So that is kind of, I would say, my brand. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm looking forward to answer a few interesting questions coming from Lasheen and you, the audience.
Absolutely. You guys are so cool. Let me just start off by saying that. Wow. This is going to be an amazing hour. I know that our audience is going to learn so much and be so inspired. And I think the first way we're going to get inspired is by having answers to the biggest question, which is, why did you guys choose to pursue a career as a woman in technology? Yelena, I'd love it if you could kick us off.
So I really I don't think there was any at any time in my life that there was a choice for anything else. I've been always passionate about technology and engineering especially. And as a kid, I loved math and science and building things. And it kind of, the technology when I was growing up, which was 70s and 80s, was a little bit different than today. But building things is something, and finding the solution for the real life problems is something that I always liked doing. And as I grew older, I actually realized that that means being an engineer. And, with the technology, I figured it out that I could actually, I'm a very curious person, right? And I like finding new things. So with the technology, it's kind of my chance to learn always about new things, about, and innovate on the way. But it's also, it's very personal in a sense that I'm satisfying my curiosity and this desire to learn things by being a technologist. And the world of technology is constantly changing, which just means that we technologists are always kept on our toes. And that can be very challenging, but in reality, it's always interesting and never boring. And that's the reason why I actually love being in this career.
Absolutely. Never a dull moment in tech. Absolutely. Kriti, same question. Why did you choose to pursue a career as a woman in technology?
I actually didn't think about a career in tech. I was more fascinated by pretty big problems. I grew up in Rajasthan in the northwest of India, and the community around me, there was a lot of inequality I could see, and gap in people who had access to education and those who could not, or the quality varied a lot. And same thing for healthcare. So there was just so much. As I was fascinated by the problems I saw around me, and then I thought, oh, okay, I seem to be good at building tech, robots, computers, all that kind of stuff. So maybe there is something I could do here for people around me to use technology as a means to doing so. So it really came from looking at problems, wanting to solve them in a more scalable way. I did end up building a lot more silly robots that didn't solve real problems, but that's how we all learn, right? As I grew older, though, I discovered, so I started as an engineer, similar to Yelena, and then shifted my career path to product management, which is more about understanding human needs and looking at business problems and intersection with technology. So it's a slight shift, but it's a whole different world of using technology to bring it at large scale around the world. So what really opened my eyes about the tech industry is there's so many different roles. I can still code in 14 languages, but very badly. So the team does not like me to code. But I do enjoy solving problems with the teams anyway.
That is tremendous, amazing. So following up on that question, Kriti, I want to stay with you for a bit. What excites you about the future of women in technology?
I'm most excited about a point where we don't have to make it a thing of being a woman in tech. And interestingly, when you asked the question of why did the two of us decide to be women in technology, neither of us talked about being women in technology. Both of us talked about technology and how much we love doing it. And so I'm most excited about that not being a thing. I will also share a personal story of my own. When I used to write code, and well, not badly at the time, I do it badly now. I used to collaborate a lot on open source platforms on open source projects with other people. And I realized when I was submitting code with my own profile and my face on GitHub and other places, I would get rejections a lot more questions. Same in online forums about areas of expertise, my expertise that I was responding to. And I would often hear, what makes you an expert? What makes you think you know the answer? And just on a whim, I changed my profile picture for that of a cat with a jetpack on it, because I'm cool. And as soon as I did that, my answers were accepted a lot more. And that was just really interesting, because a cat has more credibility in the world of computer science than a girl with 2 degrees. And then sadly, I was talking to a bunch of other women in tech, and I said, hey, I did this and this happened, and what do you think? And I read some research reports, and it said when women hide their gender, their work is accepted a lot more. And sadly, they just said, what took you so long to figure this out? A lot of people did that. So I mean, that is, that is quite painful, right? And I hope in the future, no one has to feel that way.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, and that's what companies like Fairy Godboss is here for, right? Like we really want to help to bridge that gap in the gender inequality, and I love that. You kind of hit the nail on the head. I didn't even think about it, but the way you guys answered that first question, you're right. You guys completely bypassed the woman part and just, we love technology because, and that is phenomenal. And I can't wait to see that future, come into fruition. Thank you so much for sharing that personal anecdote and that experience that you had. Yelena, I'd love to ask the same question. What excites you about the future of women in technology?
So I'm really excited to actually see many young, successful women in tech nowadays. If you look around, there are many startups. There are many women really choosing the career in tech. And even though, as you noticed, for us, it was all about the technology. I think for many years, we were working to actually encourage women to pursue this career. So seeing this happening more and more is something that really excites me about the future of women in technology. Now, as Kriti says, we still are a long way to go. When we stop having conversation, even like the one that we are having today, then we know we are there, right? But I think this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think women are really kind of made for this long type of effort. And I think we're just taking over. I'm thinking that, I see so much movement and so much great communities, and so many great inspiring women around. I mean, look at Kriti, listen to her stories, look at her, what she's doing. She's really a great role model, and not just for women, but for men as well, for anyone out there. So I think really that's what it is. We are actually showing that we are on the good way, even if there is a long way to go. And that is what I'm excited about. I'm just, at one point, I'm just going to be sitting and watching how women are actually becoming majority in some places.
I'm here for it. I love it. Again, that was what drew me to Fairy Godboss in the first place. Just kind of having that mission to bridge that gap and to just see women take over and find roles that they're qualified in that maybe 20 years ago they might not have thought about applying to. So I love hearing this. You guys are inspiring me and just reinforcing why I'm here today as well. So thank you. Getting back to the questions, what challenges lay ahead for women in technology? Like, what strategies have you used to overcome challenges you've experienced throughout your career? Yelena, I'd love for you to keep going.
So I would say one of the things that I think we can do better as women is support other women. I think that there is a need for women supporting women. And of course, the others need to support us as well. But first, you start with your own house. So I would say we need to really support each other on any level of the career. So when starting up, when moving to the senior roles, the support is always needed. And I think in my career, I was quite fortunate to have many supporters, but I also came across a different kind of people as well. The people that were almost there, I felt at that time, they were there to make actually my life difficult. And it was maybe political reasons, personal reasons, for this or another reason. But my personal experience is when I was not supported by other women, that was actually hurting more. There is the element where it really you get more emotional if it's somebody who knows how difficult at times was to pursue the career as a woman in technology, and if that person actually doesn't support you and it's not transparent with you, it's not there for you, it's really hard. So I think that is one of the challenges we should be all looking. So it's something you can work personally. It's like you can change this personally. So for me, these experiences were great life lessons. Like I take them, I don't have any grudge toward anyone because you never really know why somebody is in some way, right? But I take them as a life lessons and kind of approach them I would say, from as really as engineer would, like logically break them down, make them understand, calm my emotions, right? And, I think one of the things that these situations taught me is that I am actually extra supportive of women. So what happened to me is a bad experience. I try to correct with my behavior. And I think that is something I can only recommend to others, because selfishly, that is actually very fulfilling. Seeing other women grow, it's a great feeling. Seeing anyway other human beings growing. But as I said, because women to women, there is also an emotional involvement. So helping and seeing other women grow, I think it's really a great thing. So if somebody does that to you, doesn't support you, then hit them back by supporting more women. That's the one thing I can say.
I love that. Oh, that was such a good answer. I love that so much. Kriti, same question. What strategies have you used to overcome challenges you've experienced, throughout your career? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. The statement of 2023 and 22 and 21 and 20. We have never recovered from this. Yeah, so a couple of thoughts here. First is I've really started to ask questions a lot more as I've become more just more experienced and senior in my career. And questions like when we're buying technology from other vendors, I ask about the diversity of the founding team or the entrepreneurs. So as a buyer of technology, you can ask a lot of those questions and make sure that you're spending your investment and you're making better decisions on where you're sourcing technology from. Ask a lot of questions about during the recruitment process. I challenge my recruitment partners back and saying, have you tried to create a bigger, more diverse funnel of candidates? And being open to going to the more quirky or a bit more different candidates who are not your typical profile and giving them an opportunity. Pretty much every role I've been to, I inherit the team and start to look at what are the succession candidates, top talent, and then you start to think about, oh, tell me more about that person in this corner who you didn't talk enough about. What's their qualities and how do we elevate them? So asking questions about who do we buy technology from so we create a better pipeline of tech entrepreneurs as well. Creating more opportunities during the recruitment process as well as in the promotion process. I think those question asking point is a really big opportunity. 100% agree with Yelena's point. Absolutely, of supporting other women. I personally feel so happy that I met her. So we often jam about grand ideas of how we're going to take over. One final thing I would say on a more personal note is do not put so much pressure on yourself to represent everyone all the time. And what I mean by that is I often feel like I am the only non-white person in a room, or I'm the only woman in a room, and I'm the youngest at one point I was in the room. And so you're constantly, and I feel like, oh gosh, I'm the only one representing this entire community, like 1.4 billion Indian people in a room at any given time. I cannot screw it up because if you screw it up, you're screwing it up on behalf of everybody else. But I went through that phase of putting myself through so much pressure. And then I realized, well, someone funny enough the other day said, real equality would be when you have someone incompetent, a diverse, incompetent person at the top. I don't necessarily agree with it, but there's something to be said about not putting so much pressure on yourself to represent everyone all at the same time, and looking after yourself and caring for yourself is also important.
That is such an insightful answer, and it's something that I think resonates, within our community here at Fairy God Boss. I know, for myself personally, I've been, typically in a lot of companies that I've been at, I was like, the only Black guy there, and I remember feeling that exact same way, like I can't mess this up, or else the other, Black people that try to get a job aren't going to be able to because I messed it up, and they're going to remember me as like, I get that pressure. I get what you mean. And wow, such a great, just advice to just let that pressure go. You're representing yourself ultimately, and you just can't, put that much pressure on yourself, put that much weight on your shoulders. It's not healthy. I love that. You two are just like knocking this out the park. Just so we're crystal clear here. I am loving every second of what's happening. So next question. This one's a hard-hitting one that I can't wait to hear your answers on. I want to kick off with Kriti. How were you able to find your voice in the industry and make a name for yourself, especially as a female in an underrepresented space?
So yeah, that's a very, very good question. I thought it was I was once given advice that you keep your head down and you do good work, and great things will happen. And also, yeah, growing up in an Asian family, so it's kind of behavior that's embedded into you. Get good grades and things will be fine. And when I started working in the environment, I realized, oh, that's partially true, but it's not entirely true. You have to create a platform and you have to create impact. And then one of the harder things that I learned in the later part of my career is to show your impact through measurable results. You could put in a ton of effort into improving something from A to B, but if you're not measuring it and if you're not able to communicate it, it's a lot harder to create that platform and show the impact. So that was one very important piece of, it sounds like a small mundane thing of, yeah, we all talk about OKRs and measuring it, but being able to articulate, hey, my team and I were able to take this from here to here. This is the impact and what happened. Just creates it creates more of an opportunity to have honest, candid conversations that are more driven by opportunity and impact. The other piece I would recommend, and I'm a terrible advice giver, by the way, so only take whatever I'm saying with a pile of salt. But I also think I often, and I'm not good at it, but if I could do something differently, I would probably be more open towards asking for help. So if you need someone to recommend you for the next big job, or you feel like there's a new role you want to apply for, but you only know half of the things on the list of essential qualifications, be more open, asking others for help, and they would never say no. I've never had a person saying, no, I will not write your recommendation for this role, or I wouldn't make this call for you. But in those moments of asking for help, I was shaking inside. Oh gosh, I'm going to have to ask this big boss or boss's boss to recommend me for something else. And yeah, the younger me, I'm still not great at it, but it's easier to give advice. I would say be more open, asking for help, and just measure your impact and make sure you communicate it.
Absolutely. And Kriti, to your point, I would say that most strong people, I'd say maybe 99.9% of strong people have trouble asking for help. So don't take it like, it's just a Kriti thing. I think most people that are strong and have had to fight to overcome obstacles and things like that. That's just how we are. We just can't ask for help. But it's something that you have to just work on. So don't take that so hard on yourself. Yelena, same question. How were you able to find your voice in the industry and make a name for yourself?
So I would just echo that about help. I think asking for help, I will be helping any person in the world, always open. You can ask me anything, even if I don't know how to do it. I think I would figure it out how to do it just to help somebody. But asking for help, it's really, I think it's still very, very difficult also for me. But as you said, I think we just really need to take it. It is what it is, And sometimes I also feel that things happen for a reason. So in some situation, when you feel ready to ask for a help, it's kind of meaningful. It brings you to something, that you should be having, that you deserve. And maybe in other cases, it wasn't just meant for you. It's okay. It's not the past opportunity. It wasn't your opportunity in the first place. So I think I kind of rationalize it in that way, if one can say it. Mm-hmm. But I would say from my perspective, I actually, I was always very passionate about the topics that I put myself into. And this is really, these were always topics outside of my job and my career. Where I was previously, for example, I built the Woman in Tech and led it for more than a decade. And it really took a while until it became known and recognizable. But I think one of the things that I have is grit. So I persist until it's really there. And I think this is the one thing that actually helped me get to the place where I built the brand for myself. And I did the similar thing in previous place where I built the concept of hackathon. And really, the reason was really because I wanted that my fellow colleagues have a place where they can actually showcase their creativity and innovation outside of normal working place. And it started really as a tiny event. And, I have to say, like 2014 hackathon in the Swiss bank didn't really seem like something anyone would do. As a matter of fact, people had to Google it to see what is hackathon, because it was something that only tech companies were doing at that time. But it turned out to be, I kind of persisted until it grew. And it ended up from the event on 4 location to become an event on 17 location. And I even had like Miss Hackathon attached to my name in the company. And I would say really, again, it's a little bit persisting, but I think it's also the journey, how you get there. I mean, I always try to do things. First of all, I never really thought of doing things because they would bring me the acknowledgement. It was just something that I thought it had to be done. Like, it was really something that I was like, even if there are 2 people attending, this has to be done, right? That was the first thing. And then there is the whole journey of getting there. You try to stay who you are. You try to do it with a certain integrity. You try to stay true to your beliefs. And to be honest, if you do it like that, the journey can be quite tricky, because that means you will need to step on few toes, and you will need to insult few people. Maybe, politically, you will not be always totally correct. And maybe you will even slower your career. I can tell you this from my own experience. I think at some point I even made that for myself. You know how they say you need to be visible? I think I was even too visible at one point, because I kept on pushing and pushing. But, consequently, it got me where I wanted eventually, but it was also in the way I wanted to get there. So I didn't feel I compromised myself. I didn't feel I, compromised my integrity. So I think that's what it is. That's the combination that worked for me, kind of doing it your own way. And, and then on the way, as Kriti says, you do need to showcase the value. But at the end of the day, it's also a little bit of a luck that you're doing this at a time, at the place that actually needs that type of the value, right? And then this brings you an acknowledgement. So I'm trying to explain a bit something unexplainable, but maybe from the perspective that worked for me. So if this helps somebody, I'm happy about that.
I love it.
I would just add, one point you made that I think it was subtle, but really needs to be reinforced these days is a lot more businesses, cultures, and companies are so much more open to bringing your authentic self to work, right? And so it sounds super cliche, but where the teams Yelena and I work in, we don't have to wear the suits. We don't have to behave a certain way. What you're seeing here is how we work. It's how we are in meetings. It's the kind of conversations we have. We push, we challenge, we joke around, and Yelena brings her quirky habits and hobbies, and I do the same. And I think there's something to be said
and
about
my sneakers collection.
Exactly. And we're building that environment and that culture, and I think there's something to be said about your personal brand not being just about your work, but how you show up and who you are outside. You don't have to put on a different face.
Absolutely. And for the record, for the audience viewing, this suit is my authentic self. Is what I like to do. I'm not being forced to do this at all.
You're not wearing shorts. Sorry, serious tops.
I just wanted to throw that out there. Very Boss believes in bringing your.
I bet Lasheen is wearing flip flops. I bet.
Under this, that is absolutely correct. But I do have that on as well. Moving along a little bit. So, are there any tips you'd like to share with our employers in the room on how to foster a culture of innovation and advancement for women in technology that will lead to long-term retention and growth. And Yelena, I'd love for you to kick us off.
Okay, so I think, what I was talking before, supporting women and supporting women by the company is very important. When I say that, I think women have the tendency, first of all, many women don't have like the straightforward career path for one or another reason, if they have kids, if they kind of maybe are rediscovering themselves. And I think this nowadays is happening for many, but I think it's really important to accommodate different career paths for different people. So that is something that company can do. And I think especially for women. So allow them to maybe if they take a longer break to return and so on, things like that. But I think it's also important to put in place like mentorship program, give them an opportunities to kind of get promoted, improve their current and learn new skills. What I notice is that women have tendency to stay longer in one place. It's even me, in my previous role, I stayed 15 years, right? And the reason I stayed is because I have opportunities that allowed me to grow and develop further. And it really made me who I am today. But I could have stayed there and not develop at all. And I could be just there because I'm afraid to move. So I think employers really need to acknowledge that women need that kind of support as a communities, mentorship, and, enabling them to actually get promoted and learn new skills. I think that's what it is. And that is really easy to do. On the other hand, I just want to point out, there are so many studies out there that showcase that today, most successful companies are really diverse. So actually listening to your diverse crowd, in this case, listening to women in your company and trying to help their needs and accommodate them and support them, it's going to bring win for your company, right? So it's really, I would say the diversity is actually clearly a good business at the moment. So I think it only makes sense for the companies to think how they can invest in their diverse culture. And in this case, it's women, but it's not just women. It's like an overall diverse culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely phenomenal answer. Kriti, any insights you want to share?
I would add two things to what Yelena just very eloquently said. Just a couple more points. One is putting in extra effort to finding the right next opportunities for more diverse talent who you want to promote. So, and this doesn't always have to be a step up. It should be a step up, but it could also be the next high profile project that you are setting up or establishing, the next person you need to lead or set up a distinguished engineer program, the next person you want to bring in to set up a product boot camp or reset the strategy. If you have people on the bench who have really interesting talent, skills, experience, but are lacking one or two of those dimensions, bring them on and give them more of those opportunities and unlock that more proactively, putting in extra effort into that, I think would be really important. The second piece is something I've observed as a pattern and started doing a lot of research into it as well. And that is about the way feedback is given. And this is such an art. And a number of times I have observed myself and read research on it about women being termed as difficult or intimidating or trying to overly ambitious for her own good, like these kind of weird kind of feedback terms that are given and often passed on to the person is rather demotivating and unhelpful in many ways. I think giving people feedback to help them develop and grow is a really important thing. And I'll give you an example. It was many years ago. I was applying for a role for a new job, and I talked to the person, would have been someone in the recruitment team, and talked about diversity. And I said, "What are you doing particularly to support people from diverse backgrounds?" And they said, "Oh, we don't have a problem with that. We have no issues." This went into extremely defensive mode, which made me question, what do you mean you don't have a problem with that? Your website on your board members and your executive team says otherwise. You do have a problem. So being more open and acknowledging what the challenges are. And then also that person gave me just some terrible advice on how to handle just workplace environment. So it's like, okay, that's not very helpful at all. So I just decided that wasn't the place for me. But it's helpful to have more honest feedback that is unbiased, and you're not really factoring it based on certain terms that would be more stereotypical and unfair and incorrect.
I actually want to add something on what Kriti says, because I think it's also important to acknowledge of the type of the stage of the career, for example, women are in. Like if you're a young woman, you are trying to find you're looking for a career where you will develop your skills. But if you are a little bit more senior, culture is super. I mean, it's of course important. Culture is important for you, even if you're young. But if you're coming on a senior level, culture is really the breaking point. So if you go there and if it doesn't work, no matter how attractive job is from a salary perspective or whatever, or no matter how attractive the company is, if you are not feeling the culture, you will not join. And this is exactly what Kriti just said. I think it's so strange how, you can see by yourself how things and what you want from work actually changes with your career. And this is also something that companies need to figure it out, because it depends. What do you want to attract? Are you missing women on an entry level? Are you missing women on a mid-level or a senior women? You would actually know which kind of technique or approach you would go with.
That's such a great point. Wow. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so guess what? We are getting a ton of questions in from the audience. You guys are super engaging. Everybody's really into this conversation. So I wanted to switch gears just a tiny bit and kind of get some questions in from the audience. And Kriti, Jelena, whoever wants to answer it, just kind of, we're going to go Family Feud style. You just kind of, whoever hits unmute first gets it.
Can I need to go on mute first?
Yep. So question for the panel from Natalia. What questions might help candidates identify red flags or a poor work environment fit during the interview process? And thanks so much for your insights.
Okay, I'll go first. How do you make decisions? So I think that would be trying to understand, are the decisions made at the top or on the ground? That's one of the questions, like who's responsible, accountable to make what kind of decisions. That helps if it's very top heavy or not. The one I also quite like is very relevant to product and tech is what did you learn in the last customer meeting or interview? What was one thing that surprised you, one thing that didn't? And that kind of sometimes in a subtle way gives you reflection on how customer driven the company is versus their internal strategies. I think also some really interesting opportunities about understanding the drive and the purpose. If a company has a purpose mission statement on a wall or on a website, what was the last difficult decision you made that was painful to make, but was the right thing for your company purpose? That's just my cheat sheet. Jelena.
So I would say do a bit of a research and check who are the people, top leaders in that company. Who are the ones actually that are speaking about the company? Because that is what the company wants to have as an image to outside world. And if you can identify with them, or if you can't, that will be like, depending on which way you go, it will be your red flag. And the other thing, what I have for as a woman in tech, I always look at the diverse people that are interviewing, diversity of the people that are interviewing me. So if all the people are, middle-aged white man, then that's a red flag, right? If I have like diversity, cultural diversity, also gender diversity, then that's okay. So I look at these kind of things, and the questions that I usually ask is, what are, for example, the internal communities? Because in the place where I was, as I mentioned, I built the Women in Tech community. So I think it's very important to understand that kind of a support network, community network that exists in the company. So that is something I always ask about, because whenever you are interviewed, you usually have a possibility to speak with the HR person that has a view. So you can ask them and you can ask people, and then you can compare to see, are the people really acknowledging these communities? Are they really spending their off time, free time with the company? If they do, that's a great culture, right? If they don't, then probably, if they're just 9 to 5, that's a red flag.
Interesting. Okay, cool stuff. All right. Let me see. I would like to go down to another audience question really quickly for the panel here. Do you have an example or recommendation of best ways on how to speak up about inequality in the workplace without getting in trouble or being gaslit by those who instigate?
Ooh, that's a very difficult one. Again, another one I haven't aced, but what I'll just share from my own personal example of, I find it I find it more impactful just personally when I can talk in terms of patterns. So for instance, a few years ago, I felt I didn't feel, I knew there was there was a racial discrimination example, not on purpose, but it did happen, and kind of let it go. Then it happened to someone else who mentioned it to me. And I wouldn't say discrimination, probably more bias. And then I heard a third person talk about it. And so I felt that was the opportunity to have a more radical, candid conversation with people. And I said, hey, look, this is the reality of how there are communities in here who are feeling this way. And I started to bring some of those insights and solutions as well. I thought the result was we managed to create new policies that had more broader impact. And that policy level change is what I personally feel very interested in, because I don't want to solve the point problems of one here and one here and one there. You want to solve it for others who may not feel as empowered or able to speak up. So I think looking at some of those trends and uncovering and unpacking those and starting to explain, hey, here's what happened, and this is what, and often what might be a microaggression example to one person could just be, this is how it is to someone else, and they may not even be aware. So I do recommend honest feedback and open conversations on these topics, as hard and uncomfortable as they might be.
Absolutely. Yelena, any?
So I would say, I'm not very diplomatic in the situations when I see something like that happening. And my reaction is always first emotional. And I would advise people to kind of count 10 seconds before. So that is something that helped me. But what I'm good in is actually taking that emotion and doing something constructively. And so one of the things that I was doing, like I was already mentioning, at the place where I was, which is the company, it's a Swiss bank with more than 60,000 people, and where we were really struggling to have, diverse workforce, especially in the tech space, right? So seeing some situation and hearing some things that were happening by women, we actually founded the Women in Tech, and then we start tackling them. So basically, one of the things were, they were telling us there's no enough women. Right. There's not enough women. When we put an ad out there, there's not enough women applying. So what we start doing, we start making sure that every kind of job fair that happened, that had few women from our network present there. And then these women would actually just make sure that they speak to students, to women, and encourage them. And we already could see the change. So the reason was that the company was always in a student fairs presented with non-diverse people. So they were not approached by diverse students, right? So there is this. So that was one thing. Another thing was, bringing always sitting in the interviews. for some tech interviews, especially for some roles where they couldn't find people for a very long time. So sitting in with HR and whoever the recruiting person is, and just making sure that they're really objective, when there, especially when there are women there and things like that. We start really doing, promoting, for example, organizing the places where women could talk about their technical achievements, so they could actually present what they did. And it would be really like a lunch and learn session where people could really learn, right? So it would show the competence of the women. So basically, somehow, I would say the best way and best recommendation I could have is really when in these environments where you see clearly that there are some issues, just try to think how you can tackle them constructively, because that will help the community in a long term. That is not something, if you are aggressive, the people become, it's a kind of, you get just the reaction. But if you do it nicely, you get the long-term action, right?
Exactly. I completely agree with that. Thank you guys for answering that audience question. So in the interest of time, I am going to try to get as many audience questions as I can. Guys in the audience, if we aren't able to get to your question, I truly do apologize. This has just become such a, and I knew it would become such an engaging session and webinar that there simply just might not be enough time for the next 13 minutes or so to get to everybody. A question that I did want to ask was, what is Thomson Reuters doing to actively advance gender equality and empower women in tech? I would like, Yelena, you family feuded it, so you go first.
Did I? Okay, I didn't realize. So I think actually what Thomson Reuters is doing very well is having a great amount of women in the leadership positions. I mean, if you actually, I've been in the company where people were talking about having more women in a leadership position, but they were talking about it, right? The happening was not there. So if you actually look at the amount of female leaders and very competent, cool leaders that Thomson Reuters has, and look at Kriti and me, then you could say that actually Thomson Reuters is obviously walking the talk. And I think this is really what is done very well. And in addition, as I was saying, the communities, like we have Women at TR, we have allyship, we kind of enable women to attend conferences. So we were sponsoring and attending Grace Hopper's celebration that just happened. So, so I think this also helps empowerment of the women. But I really think that leadership element, seeing women in the roles, and it's seeing women in a leadership role, it makes them automatically a role model if they're competent, if they're really there for the right reasons. And that's what attracted me to Thomson Reuters, really. So I would say that's what they're doing well.
Yeah, I would just concur and add more color to the fact that if you look at across Thomson Reuters, some of our most strategically important projects, programs across the entire company, they're run majority by women, which is really exciting, right? Like the work Yelena is doing in building our tech culture and the expertise in our engineering organization, making us a better builder of technology. A lot of work we're doing on driving the organization-wide transformation, our go-to-market turnaround, product strategy. We are definitely seeing this trend. One thing I hope or I wish we saw more of is founders who are creating companies coming from more diverse backgrounds. A lot of, as you know, Thomson Reuters acquires a lot of companies, and we have in the past, and I would just love to see more female founded businesses scale at that stage that we could bring in. So to address that, we set up a venture fund. It's a $100 billion corporate venture fund that was set up earlier this year. And we just love investing more and more in early stage founders or founders who are female founders primarily, completely, or in some cases, one of the founders is women. So we can build that pipeline of future entrepreneurs and or current entrepreneurs who are very, very successful in our industry at a very, very early stage.
Cool. Thank you, guys. So jumping back over to the audience questions for a second here. This one is going to be loaded. So I'm going to try to ask it slowly, but I want you guys to kind of answer it as quickly as you can, just in the interest of time. I'm kind of combining 4 questions that are kind of similar all into one super question. Okay, so the super question is, how do you recommend jumping from one IT career track to another? What advice do you have for someone trying to make a career change into tech? How does one move beyond the entry level? And what advice do you have for a new graduate for an entry level in software engineering?
Okay, I'll give it a first crack, but that was a super loaded question.
It's a super question.
Yeah, I will just give a very candid piece of insight from the ground, which is, as Yelena pointed out, the nature of tech is changing constantly. There are new technologies. So whilst a lot of the foundations are the same, there's a real need for people to come in and learn and grow rapidly in many different technologies and new areas. And that means we see a lot of opportunities emerge constantly in different kind of roles. What that means is there is a lot of space in the industry to come in, for people to come in from left field, from right field, from different opportunities to dive right into these careers. The kind of careers in tech are also very broad. Even looking at Yelena's typical day and mine, we do very different things. Our worlds converge when we build products, but our day-to-day world is very different. So knowing that there are many different opportunities in the world of tech, and they're not all writing code all day, which is possible. You could do that, but it could also be a designer. It could be a data science role. It could be a customer-focused tech role. It could be a product role like mine. So all of those opportunities exist. There's a lot more flexibility now in learning new tech and applying that tech versus when Yelena and I went through our early stage careers. And I did a very typical, went to nerd school, then another nerd school, and so on. But you don't have to do that anymore. There's a lot more opportunity in open courses that you could do and get involved. So I would just recommend a lot more awareness of the kind of opportunities and knowing that this isn't as hard, and people on the other side, there's such a scarcity for tech talent that it's more people want you to succeed. They want you to come into this field. So know that they want you to succeed. I also think being more open about your interests with people around you in your organization, just telling them, hey, I want to go into this career field. I need you to help me transition or help me find an opportunity. At Thomson Reuters, we have the concept of gigs, where one can do 20% or part of their role, or for a certain few months, they could go and be loaned off and do a gig in another team. And we see tremendous kind of career transition through that program. So that might be something to try too.
That's cool. Yelena?
Yeah, I would say, just go for it. As Kriti was saying, I think sorry, Kriti, I think we're like, our beginning of our career was like a typical nerd career. I actually even went to the tech high school, and I'm telling you, this was back in 80s. So tech high school back in 80s was, we were doing like MS-DOS, like kind of teaching the computer how to print by coding the whole day to get it just to print like few lines or something. So I would say I was really a typical nerd from that perspective. Also went to university, also like follow the normal career path. Now it's all about multi-skills, actually. It's much the combination of the skills that it counts. So I think you need to figure it out who you are and what you want. And bear in mind, this can change throughout your career. So maybe when you're really young, you have aspiration to do certain things, then go for that. Try to figure it out, try to find the jobs that would actually help you at that point of your career, right? And that is really important. And then just go for it. Because I think women always look on, I don't know how many things and skills they have to fit to the job. I would say just go for it, because it's all about the combination of skills. And maybe it's not maybe visible in a job ad, but if you feel that this job is for you because it's the company you like, it's the type of work you want to learn and so on, just go for it. I think it's all about having that courage to make a step, and then you will see. So now there was also a question how to move from one type of IT career to another. So I had, and this was much more difficult before, I actually moved to financial industry from really regular engineering. And at that time, especially in Switzerland, because the financial industry is very strong in here, this was almost impossible. And I just made a leap of faith. And I was like, if it doesn't work, I'll figure it out. And I think that's the only advice I have. Have a little bit, I would say, be less hard on yourself. Take yourself less seriously and just go for it. And the worst, I mean, it's, even if it doesn't work for you, you will find something else.
Absolutely. And I'll say, from one nerd to another, this is, nerd culture is pop culture now, and nerd jobs are the ones that are paying the most. So guess what? It's the revenge of the nerds. We got it.
I know. I love it.
I will do one final lightning round question. I want you guys to answer within 30 seconds. And then we're going to have to wrap up. Okay, everybody? Simple question here. Do you have any books, podcasts, or resources you'd like to recommend to our audience that were instrumental in your career?
I can start.
Yep.
Quickly. So I think if you really want to learn, that what was really important for me at one point of my career, learning about the DevOps world and kind of how to build successful product organization, or how to build the organization where it's healthy engineering culture, was finding out about IT Revolution and Gene Kim, who is absolutely amazing, who is really, he's a founder of IT Revolution, but he's also, I don't know if you heard about DevOps Summits, also a great source to learn, to hear from other leaders how they built their organization. They also release many books, and honestly, I can recommend everything, because what is really great about them is that they're moving with the technology. So basically, you can always, if you follow them, you will follow, it will be a fast pace, but you will actually be aligned with what's happening with technology. So IT Revolution, Gene Kim, totally recommendable.
Cool stuff. Kriti, anything in 30 seconds you can tell us?
Couple of books. I highly, for those of you who are interested in product management, I recommend Inspired and Empowered. These are two different books by Marty Kagan, depending on the stage of your career you're in. I highly recommend it for anyone looking for any kind of leadership roles, whether it's engineering, product, or anything else. I would also just do a quick plug for a non-work related podcast. It's called Rest is Politics. I want to go into policy making at some point. This is like an absolute humorous situation about the current state of UK politics. And as a British person, I'm absolutely embarrassed. But I do think there's a lot to be learned about leadership and how decisions are made by observing some of the other industries that are not tech.
Cool stuff. So again, thank you so much, Yelena and Kriti, for joining us today and for sharing such fantastic advice. With 6 seconds left, I'm just going to say, everyone, thank you so much for attending. Sorry if I didn't get to your questions, but this was a tremendous call. Everyone have a great rest of your day and rest of your week. Revenge of the nerds.
Thank you.
Bye, you guys.
Love that. Bye.
Bye.